All right, welcome folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this meetup again, depending where you are. I am just going to wait a few seconds here. Welcome to this meetup. To start, sorry, I had to mute my other screen here. Let's see here. I think we're ready to go. All right, well, welcome to this online meetup. Happy New Year, right? This is our first online meetup in 2024. I am Max, and I do everything, community education for Okta workflows. So this is our monthly getting started with Okta workflows online meetup. So it's once a month. It's the first Tuesday of the month, but in January, I moved to the second Tuesday. But then in February, it's going to go back to the first Tuesday of the month. Now, today, we're going to be learning how to build a flow where a message is sent to Slack when a new Okta event happens, right? Now, specifically, we're going to use user-activated event, but of course, you can use any other events and build a similar flow. So again, a new event happens, we're going to send a Slack message. So this is one of the most popular flows that people build when they're starting with workflows. Is like something happens in your organization and you want to notify, and it's very, of course, common to send this to Slack. All right. Now, this event is being recorded, and then the replay will be available on Crowdcast right after we end the session. And I will also publish this video on YouTube. All right. Now, follow us on Crowdcast. It's in the upper right corner. You can follow our channel. You'll be notified when we go live. Also, register for upcoming events. So there is a link at the bottom of the screen. We have upcoming events. And again, the monthly getting started, we build a different flow each time. So yes, so register. And let me know what future topics you would like to see. My email in the very first column. Again, I love getting emails and questions, and so again, don't hesitate to reach out. Lastly, and if you attended my events before, we asked this question, but let me know where you're joining from. I am joining from the San Francisco Bay Area today, but it's always interesting to know where folks are joining from. All right. Lastly, if you have any questions, you can put them in chat. You can also put them in there's a Q&A section. All right, New York City. Hi, Emily. Welcome. Very cool. All right, well, let's get started. And again, I also I always keep these sessions about 30 minutes. Maybe we go a little bit over, but so yeah, it's not a full hour. So just so you know. Okay, let me share my workflows console. All right. Well, very cool. So let's get started. So this is the workflows sort of console, and then on the left-hand side, I've got a lot of folders. If you're starting just now, of course, you're not going to have that many folders. You're going to have a default folder, but you can organize your flows into folders. So that's again why I have so many folders. All right, and I'm in this folder, and so the first thing I'm going to do is, of course, I'm going to build a new flow. And again, remember, the flow we're going to build is an event happens in Okta, and you want to send a Slack message. So to build a new flow, there is a new flow button, and right away it creates a new flow. We're gonna, in the upper left corner, we're gonna give it a name. So send like message from new event. I think it might be just too long. Why don't we do this here? We'll use this for description, and then notify send to Slack. Here, send authentication to Slack. Okay, a little bit better. All right. So this is the name, the description. Now I'm also going to check this option, and this option will allow me to see and test when I run the flow. Allow me to see the execution and how the data is passed from step to step, right? So I'm going to mention this when I test the flow. So I'm going to click save. All right, so I've created a new flow. We gave the flow a name. We also gave the flow a description. If you ever need to go back, you can always go back and click on this little pencil or on the name, and then it opens back this this window. All right. Now, so the first thing is you can see here it says when this happens. Okay, so this is the how do you trigger the flow? Like what needs to happen for this flow to run, right? And that's exactly what it says when this happens. So there are several ways you can trigger a flow. Now, number one is an event. So when an event happens in your organization, it can trigger a flow, and that's what we're going to be using here. Okay, so again, an event happens. Now it doesn't need to be Okta, right? It can be other services. Just to give you, I'm going to click at event here just to show you. So I do have Okta here, of course, but you can see there are many other connectors that you can use to other services, right? So when an event happens in those systems, you can also trigger an event. Now, every service will support different events on which you can trigger a flow, okay? So that's number one. Number two is on schedule. So you can run this flow on schedule, for example, every hour, every day, or every week, right? And if I go, this is the schedule here, okay? And one more way you can trigger a flow is based via an API call, okay? So you call an API, and then which in turn triggers a flow, right? So that's the third way. And the fourth way, it's a helper flow. It's when one flow calls another flow, right? I have other meetups where I go and show how to use a helper flow. So if you go to the YouTube channel, you'll be able to find those. But again, there are four ways. So the first one is an event, schedule, then API, right? So another system calls an API, which triggers a flow, and also helper flow. Now, there's some other ways you can trigger a flow, but those four are the most common. All right, now, so in our case, we are going to use an event, and I have Okta here, and I'm going to click Okta, and you can see there's a long list of events that Okta supports. So all these events, you can use all these events to trigger a flow. Okay. Now, what I sometimes do is you can search. So I'm going to use, just going to activate it, and I'm going to pick this one, user activated. So it starts to flow when user is activated. And then I click on this, and then it adds this card with the event information. So now all these fields, this is the data that the flow will receive once it's triggered, right? So user is activated, it will trigger a flow, and then it will pass me all this information here, right? So there's date and time, for example, there is an ID, event type. Now the admin, for example, is the person who activated the user, okay? And then the Okta user is the user who was activated, right? So, okay. And what we can do is right away, we can actually test this right away. For example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the flow, all right? And just to, sometimes I do this also just to make sure that the event sort of works, I'm going to turn on the flow. So right here, there is a button, and I'm going to turn this flow on. All right. Now, notice it says here, save all data that passes through the flow, right? This is the same option that you saw here. Okay. So you can see different executions, and you can see the different data for each execution. So you're going to see that in a second. All right. Well, I've activated this. Now I'm going to go to my, oh, of course, it signed me out. All right, give me a sec here. I'm going to sign in back. All right, so this is my dashboard, and these are the people who have in my organization. And then I'm gonna use Alex Green, and I'm gonna select Alex, and I'm going to activate Alex. And so activate. All right, so Alex was activated, and I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna go to execution history. All right, and we can see that there's one run of the flow, and now you can see all the data that was passed with this event. All right. Now, so this is one run. Let me go back to Alex and let me deactivate Alex. Okay, and I'm going to activate Alex again. And if I go back to my flow, all right, and sometimes you just need to go and then come back. And we can see there is a second execution. Now, the data is, of course, very similar, but you can see how saving the data will help us see the data that was used for each flow, right? But this is the second run. All right. Again, we're going to use this data in just a sec, or at least some fields. But again, this is all the information that the event sent made available for us when the event happened, and then in turn it triggered the flow. All right, so now we got this part working. You know, we now can trigger a flow, and then we know it works. Let's continue building the flow. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to create a message. Remember, so we're sending a message to Slack. So create a message. I'm going to use a function. Now, there are two types of cards. There's the function card, and then there is the action card. Now, function cards are steps that interact with data. They change data, they create data in the flow. Now, action cards, these are cards that control other services. So for example, we're going to send a message to Slack, we're going to use an app action, okay? And I'm going to, just to show you here, you can see that all these apps available. Now they're connected apps. Now this means I already created the a connection to these applications, and then but there are also other apps available here. So these are all connectors, and you can create a connection to them, right? And then you can, you can create data, you can edit data, whatever that connector allows you to do, you can do it. Now behind the scenes, these are API calls. But you don't need to worry about setting up the API call, because the connector takes care of that. All right. Now, on the other hand, the function, these are, as I said, allow you to create data, manipulate data, and change data. So you can work with text, you can work with number, there's true, false, there is, if then, objects list, and so on. Now, the one we want is in text, and it's compose. And we can say user activated. And what I'm going to do now is I need to get the name. And so all the event provides for me is just a display name. Or you can also do the ID, which is usually the email. So let's use a display name. Now notice what I did is that this is how I connect data. This is my favorite capability in workflows, is the ability to pass data from card to card. So I'm going to do this again, is that you select a field, and then you just drag and drop it and connect it this way. Okay. And so this will be, of course, inserted when the flow is run. Now, I started by testing the entire flow with just one card, but you can also test individual cards. You can even test a compose card. So for example, I'm going to, there's a test this card button, and every card will have this button. Now this is pretty straightforward. I just need to provide a name, and then when I click test, and we can see that this is the output, right? Also, most cards are structured that the top section is the input, right? In this case, I can just write any text here, and then this section is the output, okay? All right, let me quickly check if I don't see any questions, all right? All right, now the next step is we're gonna use a Slack. We're gonna send a message to Slack. And because this is interacting with another service, now this is going to be an action. So I'm going to do action, right? And I'm going to use Slack here. Now, it's under the connected apps because I already have a connection to Slack. But I'm going to show you quickly how to create a connection as well. Now, these are all the actions that the connector supports. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Wrong card. Let me go back. Slack. So these are all the actions that the connector supports. Now, if for some reason you're familiar with the third-party service and you don't see the action listed here, you can still call that action or API. So there is a custom API action card, which allows you to specify the endpoint yourself. Now, all the other actions, this endpoint is set for you. But again, if you're using a service and you don't see the action available, you can still call it by specifying the endpoint yourself. But we're going to scroll down and we're going to use this one, send message to a channel. Okay, and now it's going to ask us some options. First, it's going to ask us the channel. So again, I'm already connected to a Slack workspace, and I'm going to use this channel. Send this bot. I'm going to say yes. And then the message is going to be in plain text. I'm going to click save. Okay, and now it's asking me which inputs I would like to show. So I don't need the timestamp. I want the name. I want the emoji, for example, and I don't need the icon URL. And I'm going to click save. All right. So now this card will send the message to Slack. Again, every service is different. You might have to configure different things. Now, notice here I have text. This is the input section, text, name for Slack bot, and then it just returns the timestamp, right, when the message was sent. Now, if you ever need to go back and change what fields are displayed, you can click this gear and then choose fields. And then you can, again, check or uncheck fields that you need. Okay. Now, I also mentioned, with the connection. So again, there's a connector to Slack, and then you can create multiple connections. Now, multiple connections, so you can connect to different instances of Slack, right? Maybe one is some kind of a testing environment or whatever. So you could have different connections to different Slack workspaces. Now, if I wanted to create a new one, I would click New Connection, right? And I'm going to give just a name 2, for example, and I'm going to click Create. Now, I don't know if you see this. It opens a new window where it's asking me, do you want to give permission to workflows to access the Slack workspace? Again, I don't know if you see this window because of the way I shared my screen, but it's very similar to how you do it with Google or with Facebook or many other services where you allow one service to access another service. So I'm just selecting my Slack workspace, and it's listing all the permissions, and I'm going to say allow. And you can see now I have Slack 2. Now it's loading the channels. It's the same Slack workspace. See here. Still loading. Let me save. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's go back and we'll add Slack again. Send to channel. Okay, so I select the same channel. I'm going to say yes in plain text. All right, and then I'm going to need timestamp. Okay, now I mentioned you can test card individually, and you saw how to test the text compose card, which is pretty straightforward. But we can also test this card, and we can say hello from workflows. Well, sorry, that's fine. You can type this here, and then when you click test, the message will be carried over. But I forgot to do the fields, so we're going to do an emoji. And let's click test. So hello from workflows. So name, this is testbot. And maybe for the emoji, we'll use a flower, right? And then I can click test. All right, and then I get this timestamp. That's the outcome. That's the result from the card. And I'm going to go to Slack, and I'm just running it in the browser, and you can see this message was sent. Right? So again, it's very nice that you can test individual cards, and I highly recommend you do that. Okay. Now, but we want to get data from this card. So what I do is I take this output and I just connect it like this. Okay, as I said, my favorite part in workflows. I'm gonna remove this again, and I'm gonna take this and connect. So we're passing the message we created here. Now the name, we can call this new user bot, and then for the emoji, yeah, we'll put a cat. All right, I'm gonna click save. All right, and now we're ready to run the flow. So again, a user is activated, the flow is triggered, we're creating this message, and then we're sending the message to Slack. Okay, so let's go to our person, Alex, and let's first deactivate Alex. It's poor Alex. So many times activated and deactivated. All right, and I'm going to click activate. Right, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go to execution history. Also with events, it could take sometimes a few seconds for the flow to get sort of rebuilt and re-registered, but we can see that there is another run here. And now we can see how the data passes from card to card, right? So this is the event. We can see that this is the text, user activated. This is Alex Green, right? That's the name, the display name. And then we can see how the message is then passed to Slack. And if I go to Slack, we can see that this is the message that was sent. All right, so we just built a flow that gets triggered when your user activated, and then we send a message to Slack notifying, hey, this user was just activated. Okay, now let's make one little change, is that add a little bit more information. Now, the information that we get from the event is fine, but sometimes you need more information about the user, or just more information before we can continue the flow. So what we're going to do is we're going to read more information about the user and then include that information in our message. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the plus, and notice that you can add cards in between as well. So it doesn't need to be just at the end here. You can add in between, and then this is an action, and this is a function. So I'm going to use an action, and I'm going to use Okta. Okay. So again, I already, of course, have a connection to Okta. And then these are all the actions that Okta supports. And there's a long list. So what I do is I usually just search, and I'm going to use read user. So read user actually retrieves all the information about the user. And you can see there's a lot of information that I can use. Now, I don't need the system. I'm going to uncheck a lot of the things here. But what I do want, I want the first name, I want the last name, I want the title, and I want the, let's see here, department and the manager. Yes. All right. I'm going to click save. Now, I also want to test this card. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my dashboard and I'm going to copy the ID. Right? That's in the URL. That's the user's ID. So I can test it. I'm going to click test. I'm going to insert the ID and click test. Right? And we can see the information that I get. Right? I get the first name, last name, title, department, and in the manager. Right? Now, again, if I need to change the fields, I can always go here and modify which fields I want to show or hide. Okay. Now, maybe I also want to, if I wanted to include, sorry, not edit, I could also include the email, for example. That would be username. Okay. And if I test, all right, now we see the email. All right, now we have this information. I want to make some changes here. So first, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to user activated. Let's see here. I have title, and I have department, and I have manager. So let's include a little more information. So first, I'm going to use the first name. Put in a space. I'm going to get the last name. Now the title. Just put a space here. Now the department. And the manager. Right? Now even more, I can use Markdown, and I'm going to make this bold really quickly. I know we're almost getting to the end, so I just need a few more minutes. Now, I'm sending a plain text message to Slack, but you can actually send rich messages to Slack using the Slack Block UI toolkit. And then we have 2 other online meetups that we cover that. So if you go back to YouTube or to Crowdcast, you'll be able to see those. But again, in this one, we're just sending a plain message. What I also want to do is notice that this is output, and usually it's fine, but if you're building a bigger flow, you want to maybe rename this field. And so to do that, I'm going to notice right here, this is the type, and I'm going to click customize, and I'm going to rename this, for example, Slack message, right? And then it changes here, and it changes here as well. So usually it's, this is a good idea to do that, to give a little more context. Now, one thing I'm missing, of course, is the ID here. So I'm going to scroll down and just under Okta user, right? Not the admin. Admin is the person who activated. I'm going to get the ID and connect it like this, all right? And I'm going to save, all right? And we're ready to run. Let's go back to the dashboard and let's deactivate Alex. Maybe one last time. And let's activate Alex. All right, let's go here. Let's go to execution history. All right, and let's see. All right, and we can see the run. So this is the event card. So event was triggered. Now we are reading user information. And this is the Okta read user card. Now we're creating the message. So you can see that the message has all this information, and then we're sending it to Slack. And we can see that now this is bold, and we just send this information. All right. Very good. Now, one last thing I wanted to show you. So again, I talked about the cards. We have 2 types of cards. We have an action card, which works with an external service. We have the function cards. which allow you to work with data like the compose card. Then a card is usually, there's the input at the top and then there's output at the bottom. If you need to decide which fields to show, you could choose fields. One other thing which I use a lot is this help, right? This icon is that it tells you how the card works. And then, for example, if I click, right, it opens a help window and it basically tells you how this card works. So I use it all the time, right? So I highly recommend you also give it a try. So every card will have that. And I'm going to open for the compose, right? And it has, some cards have examples, and so on. All right. Well, very cool. That's all I wanted to show you. So again, I'll repeat one last time. We built a flow where we use an event in Okta. In this particular case, it's user activated. But again, you can use any other Okta events to do the same. Then we just use Okta read user card to get more information about the user because the event doesn't provide all the information. Then we create a message and then we send the message to Slack. All right. Well, very cool. I don't see any questions, but if you have any questions, please put them in chat or in questions, or again, feel free to send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat. So, all right, well, I don't see any more, I mean, I don't see any questions. So, but again, don't hesitate to reach out to me after the event. Once I end the session, the recording will be here. And as I mentioned, it will be also on YouTube. I'll also send a message, a follow-up message tomorrow with links to YouTube. Thank you for joining today. I hope this was helpful. Register for upcoming events. Yes, we are actually 2 more in January. Thanks again and Happy New Year, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.